All right, we are live. Everyone, welcome. Today we are talking about conversational selling. So we're going to see people filtering in. We've got a few in already. We're up to 20. More people are going to be joining as we get going here. So I want to kick this over to all of our guests today to introduce themselves. So let's start with Joe over at Chorus.
Hey everybody, I'm Joe Caprio. I'm the VP Sales at Chorus.ai. I'm really excited to be on the call with the team we have here today and to share some information about like how we're adopting a more customer-oriented talk track and process. So I'm really pumped to be here.
All right, Dave.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dave Gerhardt. I'm the VP of Marketing at Drift. I'm not a sales guy, but all you salespeople out there would love Drift because we bring in better leads for you, and you don't have to do anything. That's basically how I explain Drift in front of salespeople. Joe's nodding his head, which is awesome. And fun fact is that I love doing webinars. Webinars are like the next best thing to speaking in front of a room, so I love doing them, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And Nick from Close.io.
Hey everybody, I'm Nick. I'm the head of revenue here at Close.io. I'm responsible for the sales, success, and support team, so all the customer-facing teams here. I am a sales guy by trade and operations as well. So hopefully I can lend some insights on the how the sales reps think of this and how they interact sort of with the funnel and all these leads that are coming in from these new channels. So super excited to be here.
Beautiful. And I'm Ryan Robinson. I'm on our marketing team here at Close.io. I'm stepping in for Stelly, who cannot join us today. As we speak right now, he is on the stage working his magic elsewhere at a conference. So I'm hopping in his stead. Hopefully I can be a decent replacement. So with that in mind, I want to kick this conversation off by starting with, something that is very near and dear to conversational selling, in my mind at least. So, today, where are we with the state of selling in terms of startups and SMBs? It wasn't that long ago in my mind that everyone was sort of professing this idea of only doing scalable things. Like you have to do scalable if you hope to grow, right? So Dave, I want to throw you this question first. In this world of scalability, why do you believe it's important today to instead focus on incorporating one-on-one conversations into your sales process?
Because, oh man, there's so many ways we go. So to me, I just think marketing and sales is a world where like, if everybody's doing what everybody does, what everybody else does, right? And so if I told you that right now, the best time to send a cold sales email is 1:15 on a Tuesday, everyone's going to come off this webinar and go and do that. And so same way we're like, we just kind of started to over automate everything. Sales and marketing technology has been amazing. It's shed a lot of light onto how to do better marketing and sales, but it's also just turned us into robots where we just do exactly what the numbers say and live that way. And so I just have the mindset of like, if everybody's going this way, we're going to go this way. And honestly, selling has always been about having conversations. Like we have a fundamental belief at Drift that like, you can't close a deal unless you have a conversation with somebody. And I think nobody would disagree with that. The problem is the tools haven't existed to actually be able to do that on your website. And so that's where you're starting to see this being able to, that's where technology is actually able to help now. So I think that the good news for the future is that it's marketing and selling is going to be about having conversations again, as opposed to, hey, click on my link, go to my webinar. Don't actually talk to me because I don't know how to handle that if it doesn't go match our routing rules and lead scoring and whatever else. But like that's what I think the future is going to be. It's about conversations.
How do you guys feel about that? So Joe, Nick, you guys are weighing in from a more sales perspective, right? So what are you seeing happen sort of on the ground floor here when it comes to one-on-one conversations versus, the drip email sequences, the chatbots of the world? Like, what are you guys seeing happening?
Well, I think if you think about what Dave shared with us, like I totally agree. There was a movement not that long ago where everybody kind of says like, oh, like us too. And they start to apply principles that apply to the businesses that they wish that they were. And so you had like really explosive growth and rocket ship, like revenue growth at like big companies. And so a lot of the talk tracks you'd see at the shows and in the sessions was like, you're a unicorn too, how to scale to 100 million. And like right now, when you're in like a white hot space and you have more leads than you know what to do with, that applies to you. And it's just about like properly segmenting and like reaching out properly. But eventually what'll happen is the space will get crowded and like there won't be enough demand for you to actually hit your number if you don't adapt. And so the adaptation that we're talking about is like actually being where your customers need you to be with the information that they need from you so that you can segue from a pitch man to a consultant and an actual guide. And that way you'll have a higher win rate, you'll have a lower churn rate, happier customers. And it's about adapting to just give your customers what they want.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in with from the sales rep perspective, and what we always try to think about as a sales team is it's all, and this relies heavily because of the type of product that we have. It's a CRM, so it's, switching CRMs is probably one of the more painful things that a company can do, or getting started with a CRM. So for us, timing is the key to everything. Being available to the prospect, when they are ready to be sold to or ready to get the information. And then the sales rep is more these days, in an inside sales perspective, is a consultant more than anything else. They need to help the person that's attempting to buy cut through all the noise, cut the information, and give them the information they need, and then determine if they're qualified. And if they are qualified, sell the hell out of them. If they're not qualified, tell them where they will probably have a better time. And if you're genuine about that, they will come around when they are qualified. If you just have that general belief, it'll come back around. So that's how, we think about it from the sales side.
So one thing that I heard, pretty much all of you guys mention here, and I think is particularly relevant to everyone watching today, is decreasing your time to connection with the prospect, right? So the sooner that you can get in touch with someone who expresses interest in your product or service, the higher the likelihood of them responding or taking some sort of desired action, right? So opening this up to all of you again, whoever wants to take a stab at it first, go for it. But how do you start putting systems in place that allow you or your team to get in touch with prospects and start helping them as close to that initial moment of interest as possible?
I want to take this one because I think it's helpful to first go back and look up further and say, like, well, why? I think this is what people miss is, like, it is common sense that the faster you can reach out to new leads, but I think that people miss it. And I think we just need to think about yourself, right? When you're looking for something, especially all of our products are marketing and sales products. Nobody is like laying in bed on a Saturday morning browsing for marketing and sales software, right? Nobody needs more business software. So like you're there for a reason. So to me, it's all about the intent. And if somebody's on your website, you and I expect to go, if I'm on your website, I expect to find what I need. And if I can't find it, I'm gone. Or I'm busy. I have time right now. And so like if I look at my calendar today, and I'm sure just like everybody else, I have meetings the entire day. And so if I go to somebody's website and I'm interested in buying in that moment, I don't hear from them, then guess what? Then they're going to follow up with me. I'm going to have 100 emails in my inbox. The time was gone, right? And I'm dealing with it right now. I had a demo. From a sales rep on Monday of something that I was thinking about buying, kind of on the fence. And ever since then, we've been playing like the catch-up game simply because like the timing wasn't right. And so I think the same thing, just think about yourself as a buyer, right? We all want answers in real time. And so we just haven't been able to serve customers that way, but now customers expect it. So you have to be able to do it. And that's where we bet a lot on bots. I know there's a lot of hype around like chatbots, but from a sales and marketing perspective, the hype is very real because they can do something that you can't, which is literally sit on your website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They don't need vacation. They don't get sick. You don't have to train them, and they can respond and get people the answers they need. So that's where I think like that's really important on the speed to lead piece of it.
Joe, what do you think?
I actually think for a long time we've talked about like time to call as an important metric, and I think it matters, but I think there's a more important piece than just how quickly you react. And maybe about 5 years ago, it became really sexy to talk about my opportunity stages are mapped to the buyer's process instead of the sales process. And it showed like an awareness and like it earned trust with your buyer if you would understand how they wanted to buy and then sold to them the way that they wanted to buy. And I think that's taken like another iteration these days where it's not the buyer's journey, it's the customer's journey. So you take your most successful, happiest, like highest, like happy to promote you in the space. You take those customers and you trace back where they came from, when they realized they needed help, what they wanted help with, and how they moved through to be a good customer. And then like really in tune businesses will map their entire business to the customer journey. And so an example, we love Drift, of course, but an example is like early stage in that journey, you've just got somebody who's curious or interested or heard it was cool, but they don't know why. And then the CEB group and the Challenger sale taught us that buyers are doing 75% of their research before they ever talk to a salesperson. So you put those two things together. They're doing their homework on YouTube and on like, you know, G2 Crowd and on your website. And they're there for information. They're there for education. So I love Drift because I can like set it and forget it. But the other thing is like, I know my job when somebody's on the website is to educate them and give them the information they want. So having a bot or a human sitting there aware that their job is to support that prospect through that phase of the journey, which is education. To me, it's about what you're giving them, and it's about time, but it's about what you're giving them in the moment. Give them what they need.
Joe,
That's what it's about for me.
So you manage a BDR team. Do you train BDR differently than you did maybe like 5 years ago? Like, have you seen a change in how you're coaching and educating?
I mean, 5 years ago, I think everybody just had like, you know, Gmail, or if they were like an early adopter, they had like Tout or Yesware. You could maybe put a template in there. The entire stack has changed. Like if you're not teaching the ICP, persona, use case, if you're not teaching that stuff right out of the gate, then like you're missing an opportunity. And let's be honest, you're hiring these BDRs either right out of college or like a couple years out of college. You think they have real world experience. You think they have like the acumen to be able to figure this out on their own. You're crazy. Give them very distinct channels that people would come in through and procure through, and like educate them why that business needs what you have, why that human needs what you have, and make sure that they understand it, or else you're throwing money away, really.
So Joe, this is actually, Nick, you want to weigh in real quick?
Yeah, I just want to throw in a pro tip on BDR hiring. So I have found over the years that college athletes are gold when it comes to looking to source really good BDR candidates because they're used to being in the gym or on the field practicing all day and doing repetitive type of stuff, and then improving on that and having a general excitement about that, and they see the results of it, on the field and in the results. And then also they're really adept to the plays changing and, all the tactics changing of how we're going to approach it or how we're going to win today or win tomorrow. So that wasn't a question that was asked. It's just that is something that has been, everybody always asks me, hey, how do you hire, I'm like, first place I look is college athletes, for these.
Nick, we're just going to give away our entire playbook on this webinar. I can tell we're just so eager to share cool ideas. I agree with you. And then take it a step further. Everyone should start stealing people from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. They advertise during March Madness and every NCAA game, and it's like, we hire former athletes because they're driven and hardworking and understand the value in like delayed gratification. And then people go get a job at Enterprise. They work 6 days a week from 7 to 7, and they're vacuuming cars in a shirt and tie. They come work at a tech company, and they're like, I know it's cliche, but like, you have beer and ping pong. They actually like appreciate that. So hire former athletes, but take them from Enterprise because then they're 8 months out of school and they've already been conditioned to work hard.
Man, that was the super seeker tip that I was going to withhold, but you threw it out there, but agreed.
So guys, I want to touch on something that Joe, you mentioned just a few minutes ago. And that's, I think what you were getting at too, is sort of the art of the conversation, right? So learning how you can best help someone, more of the consultative sell, right? Versus just trying to cram a sale down and potentially book a customer that's not necessarily right for your business. So when it comes to sort of this consultative sell, in your experience, what makes a conversation great?
Wow, what makes the conversation great? Dave, you came off mute. Do you want to go?
And actually, these
Um,
conversations can happen over chat or over the phone, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you my thought, actually not as a marketing person or a salesperson, just as a buyer. For me, and I get like as a VP of marketing in SaaS, like my inbox is just all day vendor pitches, right? The ones that are actually the good conversations to me are when somebody actually has a conversation with me. And that is most of the time it's not a conversation. When you're trying to put me through BANT and make sure that I have the budget, authority, need, timing, when you try to qualify me, when you try to ask me what my goals are, my goals this year are to generate millions of dollars in revenue. Okay, what are you going to tell me that's going to help? There is not one. Of course, every sales, they want me to give them like some little ammo that then they can then flip on me. Have a conversation. Like, that is the secret. That is what makes a conversation great, is actually having a conversation, looking me in the eye and saying, okay, Dave, tell me what a day is like for you. I'm going to talk about how we can help. But first, like having a conversation. So many people do not do that I think now there is no secret. And when people do it, I'm like, wait a second, that rep was amazing. That was an amazing experience. This person actually cared about what I need, right? And especially today, I love Drift, Close.io, Chorus, but I got to tell you, we are all selling something that is a commodity. As good as I think Drift is and all of our products, SaaS is a commodity, right? Whether it's true or not, our potential customers can just go and Google something on somebody else's website, go there and get a relatively cheap competitor. And so you have to actually care. And so I think the only hack to having a good conversation is not putting somebody through a sales process, but actually understanding what their pain is, how you can help, and flipping that. Because today, like, the buyer has all the power today, where 5, 6, 7 years ago, the company could have all the power and say, look, you need Drift, up to you if you want or not, like, right? I'm going to qualify you and make sure you're a good fit. Today, the buyer has all the power. And so as a sales or marketing person, you have to adapt to actually have a conversation with them. Imagine that.
Yeah, what I'll add here is what I try to do with our sales team, because they're at the point of their career where they're about a year and a half, 2 years into, their journey as, software salespeople, let's say, and they're going to go on to do other stuff. Like, the end goal for them is not to be selling software. They want to do other stuff. But what I try to drill to them is that they need to value the interaction. Like Dave said, they need to value the interaction over the actual outcome of that particular thing that they're selling. And what that means is that the actual relationship that they're trying to forge or have with the prospect that they're trying to talk to, by actually having a conversation and almost making the thing that we're trying to do today almost secondary in value. An example is, I've sold 3 or 4 different types of software over my years in sales to the same people. I don't know what the hell is going to happen in 18 months. I'm probably I could be working at Chorus or Drift or vice versa. And the people that I interact with at, in my job, in my role now, they may want to buy that product too, and what have you. And all that shit matters. So, trying to tell these reps that these conversations you're having with people, you have an opportunity to speak to the dozen people that you have a day. That's a dozen relationships you get to create each day. And some of them won't go well. And some people you won't rub, perfectly with every single time. That's just, humans in general. But that's a key part when people are trying to grow in their career in sales, is it's beyond the actual thing you're selling today, because in 5 years, you could be working for that person that you're selling to, or they're working for you, however the outcome lies out. So, I mean, that's something that in a sales training thing, that's what I spend a lot of time with reps on.
For me, I totally agree. I think it's like, if you make your goal, so one of the reps at Insight Squared said this once. He said, if I remove myself from the situation, as if I don't matter, then the only person left is the prospect or the customer. And then everything that I do will truly be geared around delivering what they need and helping them forward on their journey. And so if you have that mentality about interacting with your prospects and your customers, then you'll be trusted, you'll be an advisor, and you won't be a salesman. I think about the best interaction I ever had with a salesperson, and it's crazy, but I bought a furnace for a house I owned in the suburbs of Boston. And I walked into the HVAC store in a shirt and tie, and it's like I have, city hands from counting money all my life. The truth is I'm actually really blue collar, but I was wearing a shirt and tie. And I walk in and he's got construction boots, and I have like that same fear you have when you go to the mechanic. You don't understand the subject matter, and so you fear the salesperson. They're going to rip me off. Well, I walk into this plumbing store, and he says, what are you here for? And I say, I need a furnace. My house is cold. And he says, well, is it gas or oil? And I don't know. And so he asks me, what color is the supply pipe? And I tell him, oh, it's a gas. Is it forced hot air or forced hot water? And I don't know. So he asks me, do you have a grate on the floor where hot air comes out, or do you hear water run through pipes? And so I answer him, and he says, here's what you need. He takes me to the corner of his showroom. He says, you need one of these 3 units, and here's why you would buy A versus B versus C. And so in that moment, I realized this person is helpful, he's educating me, and I now have what I need to make a decision. I go out to the car, I Google the model number, and I find it at Home Depot and one other supply room, and it's like within a couple $100. I march right back into the showroom and I say, how do I get this thing installed? He hands me his brother's card and says he does installations. So I upsell in the moment. And it's because that person's desire was to understand what I needed and then educate me how to figure out what I needed and how to implement it. And if we all take a page from that playbook, our customers will be happier, our sales will be frictionless, and our churn will be way lower. So find out what they want and be like genuinely intellectually curious about what they want, and then give that to them. And that's where you really have to educate your sales team and your support team about why businesses benefit from your product and how to lead them to that success.
And I think, one thing I want to highlight about that example, because that's an awesome example, is that the guy didn't make you feel stupid for not knowing all these little nuances of his industry that you would have no reason to know, right? So when you're having these conversations with people, like, don't make them feel like they're somehow inferior for not having in-depth knowledge about the product that you're trying to sell them, right? So, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, or it'll come across in a really selfish way, like who else needs to be involved in this decision, which is code for like, who's your boss? And it makes your prospect clam up because the more I tell this guy, the more he's gonna use it against me or go around me or just offend me. So it's either you're like offending them because they're stupid, or you're insulting them because they're not big enough to make a decision.
And something else that I know is going to be relevant to all three of you guys is sort of experimenting and optimizing with the conversations you're having with your prospects, right? So you can write a script. It may work for a few weeks, a few months, whatever that may be, but everything changes all the time, especially with startups and SaaS. So when you're sort of looking at this evolving world that's always changing, how do you conduct experiments safely, right? And not totally throw your process off the rails and begin testing, seeing how you can get better results out of your conversations?
I can start. So again, a lot of this, when I hear the question, Ryan, it's very much, I hear it through the lens of, how do I train a salesperson to have the conversation, or whomever is having it? And what I try to do, and this is not scientific at all in nature, is I give the scripts and what has worked in general, what works most of the time, to the salesperson when they start. And then over time, that helps them build up their voice, their persona of how they sell. And it's different for everybody. I mean, you could put people into buckets, but it's different for everybody. And then teach them how to actually do the experiment on their own through their own voice. Because trying to take, one tactic of doing something and try to apply it to all these different people, you're going to get different results every time. And, somebody that delivers something in a certain way can't deliver that script that way and stuff like that. So it's going to skew the results. So I always try to give the tools to the sales rep on how to do the experiment and test it on their own, through their own voice, because I value people, being authentic in their self. And a lot of times that creates, there's a rep on our sales team that, is very aggressive in the way that they, the way that their tone, it seems off-putting to some people. So we've been working on, is that really how you want to go? And then we've been trying to switch it that way. So I tailor it to the actual salesperson and have them do the experiment on their own. I don't try to do it in mass, because I don't feel that it works.
Yeah, I'll add one. This is the nature, of course. I hate to be like self-promotional, but like we record the calls, we transcribe them, and we give you an ability to like analyze what your customers are saying and how they're reacting to what you say. And Drift is a customer, and I was on the train in San Francisco, and I ran into an old friend, Rob Perez, who's a manager at Drift. And Rob, how's life? How are things going? And he told me a story. He said, things are going really well. I actually just got like a major win for us, and I used Chorus to do it. And I asked him to tell me. He said, we introduced a new talk track at Drift. And through that new talk track, we created a little friction with our buyers. And so what I did is I drilled down in the call library in Chorus, and I isolated that moment with 5 different prospects. And I listened to their reaction. And I identified really quickly that it wasn't what we wanted or what we were asking for. It was one piece of the way that we explained it. And that at the exact same moment in the talk track, the prospect, their hair stood up in the back of their neck. And so I just quickly rewrote that piece, redeployed it, and immediately all the customers are happy and everything's frictionless again. And so asking about like, how do you iterate or how do you experiment with talk tracks? There is no replacement for either saying it to the customer yourself or listening as your reps say it to them and then hearing their reaction and then making sure that you're building and designing and marketing and selling and supporting in a way that works for the end user. It's about listening to your customers and then adapting to give them what they need.
So Dave, how do you tackle something like this from a chatbot perspective? And maybe particularly when it's kind of an automated chatbot system rather than just a person behind the scenes who's actually live answering questions all the time?
How do I handle what?
Tweaking conversations. So experimenting with different types of questions that you ask people who maybe land on your pricing page and express interest, different ways to engage them and try and get different results.
So I think like this is the thing that a lot of marketers miss with bots is they think that they can just put a bot on their website and then it's just magic and then you're done. But the same principles of marketing apply. Like you have to write good copy. You have to tell a compelling story. You have to give people a reason to interact with the bot. And so I think like the same things that everybody has learned about marketing apply. And so you always have to be testing and tweaking. We're doing it all the time. Like how can we start more conversations on our pricing page? How can we have better conversations? Okay, now that we've started more conversations, how can we have better conversations? And it's really just like like you're writing copy on a landing page inside of a conversation. And so you can see all of the questions that somebody's asking and then what those responses are. But honestly, outside of what we actually can see in the product, the best solution or the most valuable thing to me is just talking to our sales team. Like we have a great relationship with our sales reps. And so we sit right with them. And so I can actually go and drift and see, oh man, that we just booked a demo with somebody that we shouldn't have booked. That's not going to like that guy's not going to show up. It's going to be a bad fit. Or wait a second, this person is a great fit for us. Why aren't we talking to this person? Why are we going to continue to talk to them and qualify them? And so like, there's a combination of the data that we get from the product, but also just being, tight with the sales team and on the sales floor and hearing what's happening for them firsthand, because the bot is the one that's qualifying and booking meetings for them. And so we can actually go and watch that and figure out how to tweak that. So I think it's just having that constant like mix of data and feedback loop from the reps. I think any good marketer, it's sad that like this has come to this, but most people don't have that type of relationship. But I think any good marketer at your company should be in the weeds with the sales team, listening to what they care about. Now, every sales rep of all time has told me that they need more case studies, they need more proof points, they need more decks, they need more leads, right? So like I can give them a hard time back too, but there is a lot of value in just like the water cooler stuff that you don't get from the formal meetings. Just like, hey, like, what's up, guys? Can I sit with you for a minute? Like, what how are things working on the website? Like, what could we be doing better? Like, okay, leads from this channel are not very good, because there's stuff that no matter how good your ops team is, there's stuff that doesn't show up in the data. And so just having a good relationship with them and being able to hear what's happening out there has been honestly the best shortcut for me personally.
Yeah, and I want to touch on this too, because the value of actually sitting with your sales team and learning from them. And we just had our team retreat at Close.io a few weeks ago, and everyone as a company sat in the same room and used our product to make calls. And so we talked to prospects, we listened to our sales reps who do this every single day, and like the amount of crammed lessons I learned in that 1 hour span of time where we actually made calls and used the product was more than I had learned in my previous 4 months working here. So the value of actually getting your hands dirty, I cannot understate that. So something, that we've been talking a lot about is automation, right? And automation is very sexy, especially when it comes to sales and marketing, drip emails, chatbots, other automation tools that try and scale back the human component, at least until you get to the point where someone's qualified and ready to talk to a person. So how do you decide at which point to have a real life human sort of step into your sales process today?
Yeah, so that's a great question. This is it's kind of based on the preference of the company. And so if Joe Caprio and I went and started our own company and we had no website traffic, I would use no bots because I would want to talk to every single person that came into my store, right? But as you start to grow and you start to get some traffic, you're going to want to have somebody that's going to qualify those conversations for you. So that's kind of when we turn on the bots and they can actually filter out some of the noise for you. But the real secret power, the superpower for sales reps is like, anytime you can get a notification anytime it's an account in your name. And so you can get a notification on your phone or in your browser. And so that's kind of when they'll hop in. If, hey, I know that Chorus is on our pricing page right now, I might get a notification that they're there and I can hop in and have a conversation. But also we've built a whole culture around sales chat. Like I think live chat has had a bad reputation at a lot of other companies because it's been a support tool. But the way we built it at Drift, it's actually to generate revenue. And so our reps all kind of rotate throughout the day and they're hopping in the sales inbox and having conversations. And the ones that spend the most time in there are the ones that have the best pipeline and close the most deals faster because those are the highest intent people. And the biggest misconception is like, well, how am I going to have time? I'm too busy to have conversations. Like I can't have chat. And we're like, no, you're missing the point. Those are the people you should be talking to, right? It doesn't matter what else you should be doing. And so we've spent a lot of time trying to like, through our content and just marketing, like repaint the picture of like, wait a second. You're telling me that in 2018, when there's more noise than ever before, there's more competition than ever before, consumers are more distracted than ever before, somebody's on your website trying to talk to you and you're too busy to talk to them, like that is the person you should be spending the most time on. So we do use a mix of bots and people. For us as a company, because we're Drift, a lot of people come to our website and play around the bots. And so our sales team probably spends more time like manually in there than other companies. But we have a lot of customers who will just have the bot basically fully automate chat, and then the reps walk into work the next day and have meetings booked for them. So it's a preference based on kind of what your sales motion is really. I will one last thing though. I will say like the mission of a bot is not to replace a human, and so I think that is a really key thing that we haven't touched on yet. We still think that humans are going to have the best conversations because you and I want to talk to people, but we use the bots to do a lot of the stuff that humans like. Don't need to actually go do. It's a lot of the mundane kind of sales, the digital paperwork that actually takes to get a meeting booked.
Yeah, what I'll add here is what I often see is the sales team or the company lets the buyers or the prospects dictate the sales funnel and the sales process, and not the other way around. Like it's your sales funnel, it's your sales process. You control it. And one example of that is our sales team only talks to people in an active 14-day free trial. That's it. Because timing is so important with the purchase process of a CRM that we have just decided that we're only going to deploy our sales team, our people that are knowledgeable about sales CRMs and our product and the ecosystem to help them find the right product for them, that we're only going to commit their time when the prospect commits theirs. And for us, that's a 14-day free trial. In other processes, it could be they came through chat and they answered some questions or whatever other thing that you want to do. You may not have, a 14-day free trial, but that's what we've done, and we've continued to do that. And that may lose us deals, but for us, it increases the amount of effective time that our salespeople are having on the phone and talking to somebody that has made the decision that I'm willing to look at this, and if that is the right fit for me, I am going to make a decision in 14 days. And that's what we've done.
I agree. So Dave, you mentioned one thing that reminded me of an article, a blog that Tomas at Redpoint wrote a couple of years ago about Iron Man, not RoboCop. When it comes to AI or machine learning tech, don't treat it like RoboCop, where it consumes and takes over decision making. Treat it like Iron Man, where it's a human being powered by tech to do superhuman things. And I subscribe to that logic. Like use bots, use AI, use tech to make the humans better at their job. And then Nick, I actually think we're all on the same page here about it. It's the original question is from Ryan is, when do you have a human being engage with the prospect? And the answer is as soon as the prospect wants you to. And so what we do is we use Drift, we use Chorus, we're at trade shows, and we're there to talk to a customer when they're ready to or when they want to, the way that they want to.
Yeah.
So I always think of this like really embarrassing story where we were just starting to do events at my last company, and a late stage swing deal, like mid-market opportunity, was at the event. We hosted it. They walked up to me and they said, "Hey, is this AE here? We'd like to see her." And I said, "No, she's not here. None of my AEs are here. We didn't require it that any salespeople would come to this event that we threw. And so none of the AEs are here, and all of these late stage opportunities are here." And that's just like an example of just a company not paying attention to where their buyers are and when and how they want to talk to you. So whether it's trade shows or private panels or webinars or bots or chat or anything, the answer is like, you should talk to your customer when they want you to.
Yeah. My favorite way of breaking down what AI can do to sales is from John Barrows. I just pulled this up. He said this quote a bunch of times, but I found this. He said AI is going to make good sales reps great sales reps incredible, and average sales reps irrelevant. And I think that is like that's my favorite summary of how bots are impacting sales today.
I love that. I think that's a good point. I want to transition over to the audience questions now. So you guys have been asking some good questions. Please keep them coming. There's a Q&A box where you can get your questions in, and we're going to start answering them in order that they were received. So the sooner you ask them, the sooner we'll be able to answer them. So I want to hop into the first question that I see here that I know is really relevant to our conversation today. So Vincent asked, do you suggest cold calling a specific target prospect or emailing them through sequences first? What do you guys have, any strong opinions as far as if you've committed to outbound selling, right? So if you're reaching out to people that are going to be targeted prospects for your business, should you call first? Should you email first? And then, what have you experienced in this world?
I have a basic methodology for this. The initial email and the initial cold call, both you're trying to get the same result, and that's the next call. So, you cold call somebody to get to the next call where there's actual expectations about what we're going to talk about. Email does the same thing. So basically just figure out within your market, your target market, what do they respond more, to more? If you're calling, if you're selling to, local merchants, local businesses, calling is still going to work because they're there and you got to catch them. And then there's a high no-show rate. So you have to figure out processes to make that less of a thing. But if you're talking to people at VP level or director level of some business, email is probably going to work better. So you got to do both. I believe you have to do both, and then just skew heavier or more resources to which ones react more. But neither of them close the deal. They just get you the next meeting. And if you just think about it in an isolated part of the funnel like that, it should be pretty easy to figure out which one will work better or worse.
I totally agree. I think that every like forward thinking, up to speed demand gen team right now is doing a combination of like air cover from marketing and outbound from BDR, like at the same time to a targeted list of accounts. And the email copy and the phone copy should jive with your messaging and your overall pitch. And so I don't know if it matters that it goes email and then phone, or phone and then email, or like, mailer and then phone. I think what matters is that you're like delivering the right thing to the prospect. So I always think back to my friend Mark Costello at Outreach, and he has this principle called first is best. So if you listen to John Barrows or Jeff Hoffman and you think about like leading with something about the end user that proves out there's a fit for them in your product, it's signal or it's trigger. And so what we learned from Mark was he prioritized the signal or the trigger that was most effective. And he called it first is best. There are like 15 things that would prove a company needed to buy Outreach. And the most important, biggest one is the first piece of research they would do. And if they found that to be applicable, they'd stop their research and they would send an email that said, I found this about your company. I bet you're working on this project. We can help. If thing one doesn't exist, they go to thing two, which is like the number 2 best signal. And if that applies, then they send a triggered email and a voicemail. If number 2 doesn't apply, they go to number 3. And so it's like, you don't have to do an hour of research. You don't have to, I hear always your stats, like it takes 30 minutes to send a customized email. No, it doesn't, right? Give them like very prescriptive instructions on how to do their research.
I love that so much. That is
Right.
like the laziest sales rep excuse I've ever heard. Like,
That's why I can only send 10 emails in a day. Right.
because
But Dave, the point is like,
I'll give
go
you
ahead.
I'll give you a secret. You know what our best performing cold sales emails at Drift? You know how long they are? They're about a one sentence. I'll tell you what it is right now. Hey Joe, I noticed you only use forms on your website. Is there any reason for that? I went to your website. I saw you don't have Drift. You have forms. I asked you a question. Like, I'm not selling you anything. So I think oh man, this is the marker in me being like,
So Dave, when you send that email, do you follow up with people who don't respond? And if you do follow up, how long do you wait before following up? Because I think there's a question that's top of mind for a lot of people listening. Is like, okay, I send that first email, I make that first call. When do I follow up? Should I follow up?
Yeah, I don't know because I don't do any of this. I just send emails. I'm the marketer, but I have a lot of opinions of how I think sales should work though. So I'm happy to share those. Right, it's like every VP of marketing, every VP of sales ever. Like, Joe thinks he could do my job. I think I could do his. No, but I don't have an opinion on when the follow up should happen. As a marketer trying to protect my lead number, I want it to happen right away. But as a buyer, just if you email me a day later, did you get my note? 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 So I love the approach of like, at the same time, if it's a straight up cold email, not using my best email as my first one is always important, because then it's like, have you seen me somewhere else? So I think it's less about the follow up, whereas like I would send the first email and then I have so much information, as most people do online. Like, you could go find my YouTube channel. You go find my podcast. You go follow me on Twitter. You could go see me on LinkedIn. My Instagram is open. So like, if you're a rep and you really wanted to sell me, you do your homework. Like, all my stuff is out there, and that is true for most people. And so it's not necessarily to me like when you're going to send that next follow-up. It's like, how else are you going to get on my radar? I actually had I'll just share an honest conversation with one of our reps. Nick, I love talking to him. He just sends me like, hey, as the person I'm trying to sell to at other companies, like, just give me raw feedback on this. And so we're always just kind of going back and forth on like how we would sell, like how we would talk to each other, which is interesting. And he said, like, what's something else I could do that would be like, would help me stand out as a rep? And I said, hey, do what you do to me, but to everybody else. And he's always sending me like ideas. Hey, do you guys think about doing this? Do you guys think about doing this? Hey, I love that podcast. You just think about doing this? I'm like, what if you took that approach and you applied it to the people you're trying to sell to? Like, nobody in the game is doing that. And that was like a moment.
Nick, Joe, what do you guys feel about follow-ups? Duration, how to do it?
Yeah, so basically you always follow up forever until you get a no or a fuck off, basically, is you just follow up indefinitely. In terms of like duration, so again, what is the trigger event that got, the response, and then sort of react within that. So in our case, it's a 14-day free trial. So obviously within those 14 days, we're reaching out every 2 days, 3 days, like really aggressively, just to figure out if they're qualified or not. It's almost like a service to them to help them, hey, if we can figure out this is not a fit in day 3, we can save you the next 10 days of not reaching out to you because we just figured this out. So that's a big push. But then over time, especially in an outbound scenario, you start aggressively, say following up, once a week. And then if that doesn't, that you don't get a response, move it out to every other week, and then every month, and then every other month. But, you shouldn't assume that, people are busy. Like, don't take it personally. Just keep following up indefinitely until you get a hard no, or stop talking to me. And that's it.
Yeah, I think the beauty of like this whole movement right now, like the coaching network, which Gordon Ritter at Emergence Capital writes about, is like using technology to answer these questions and to enable humans to do their job better. So there are really, really simple things you can do with products that exist, where you can A/B test sequence length and touch frequency and talk tracks. So like, if you're not answering this question with real data, then you're just being lazy about it. So I worry less about the perfect follow-up or the perfect sequence, because I know I'm going to get there over time. I think more about the types of companies or the specific companies that I'm engaging with. And so you could email somebody to death, right? And eventually you're strip mining. So it'll get worse and worse and worse, but it's like an asymptote. It never drops completely to zero. The reply rate does exist. And so for me, it's more about measuring, like, is it chat? Is it outbound phone? Is it trade show? Is it webinar leads? Like, who's responding to me? And then I'm taking those inbound channels, I'm taking triggered outbound channels, and I'm like measuring which ones work. And then what most or some really thoughtful companies are doing right now is they're augmenting the inbound lead flow before they go outbound. So when I say that, I mean they're using products like G2 Crowd or DataFox to identify the signal that does convert. And then they're making sure that their sales team takes that signal, prospects the right way. And like what we find is that like some of those leads convert better than actual inbound leads. So I don't know if there's really still a debate about follow-up patterns. I think the real debate now is like, who is your buyer? Why do they buy from you? Where can you find them? And what do they want from you to move forward?
So another question that came in from Mary Lou, I think is a really interesting one to the conversation we're having right now. So how do you demonstrate value in a conversation when you have someone on the phone, on the chatbot, over email that literally just wants to talk price?
I would love to answer this one. I would absolutely love to answer this one. So I've spent the last 7 years in like in B2B SaaS, especially in like the enablement space. And here's the reality. You take a piece of paper and you fold it in half. And on the left half, you have the customer asks for or the prospect wants. And on the right half, you have what they actually need. And so anybody early stage in an engagement with you that just wants to like fight about price, the reality is they're not educated enough on whether or not this is worth their time or whether or not they're going to be able to sell it internally. And so they're like, maybe if I get a really good deal, my boss will be proud and happy and he'll let me buy or she'll let me buy it. And so they're asking for this stuff out of an insecurity or an inability or an immaturity or an ignorance on how to actually procure software, which is like identify a problem, build a business case, calculate ROI, test it, and then implement it and make it work. So anytime somebody's too early with me and they just want price, you know, I'll explain that to them. And sometimes they'll get offended by it. And I'll explain how I procure software and all of the deals that I've transacted on, they've procured software. And it is never the way that this prospect is trying to procure software. And this prospect would never want their sales team to behave the way they're asking us to behave. So let's treat each other like adults and like equals, and I will help you. Or go move on to the price competitor in the space, because there always is one, and they'll take those garbage deals that pay less and churn faster. So let them walk.
Tough love. I like that. So Dave, I've got a question that I know is going to be relevant to you guys, especially Adrift with your product, what you guys do. So Michelle asks, an issue I'm currently having in my sales process is that my contacts ghost me after they show interest. Maybe they fill out a form, maybe they chat with your bot, they book a meeting basically, but then they don't show up. You can't reach them over the phone. They don't respond to email, LinkedIn. What do you do next? Do you just write them off?
I think it depends on what the level of intent was, right? Like I'm not going to follow up with somebody as hard if it was, you know, somebody filled out a form as opposed to somebody that booked a demo. Why'd you book a demo? Why did you come? Like we actually clean up on a lot of demos that we missed by asking people, hey, you booked a demo, it didn't show up. What's the deal? And honestly, I cancel a lot of meetings. Like I do. Sometimes I'm buying stuff that isn't a pain, but it's interesting. And then I have a really busy day and I'm like, ooh, I could get 30 minutes back if I canceled this meeting with a sales rep. And I know that sucks for the rep, but like, that's kind of like that's the reality of it. So, that's a hard question to answer on the fly because it just depends on your business. I would just be digging into that funnel a little bit more and looking at all the different pieces and figuring out where people are leaking. It's kind of just like, you just have to go reverse engineer that, right? If it was a lot of people are booking demos but not showing up, that smells to me like it's not the right people, right? Or if a lot of people are filling out the form but nothing's happening after that, well then what was the actual call to action? What was the value that you get after filling out that form? So like it's tough to answer on the fly. It's kind of like, you know, when people ask me like, hey, what's the best marketing strategy? I'm like, I have no idea. That's different for every single business. So I think the follow-up thing is the same thing. So it's tough to diagnose without being able to like understand your business.
Yeah, one tactic just to try. This is what I do when we have a lot of no-shows from a certain lead source. This is not for Close.io because this is mainly an outbound situation. I send an email the morning of saying, "Hey, I see on my schedule we're supposed to meet at this time. Are you coming?" And then just see if that gets a response. And you could get 2 or 3 of the people respond and try to reschedule with you at a better time. And maybe you could pick up a few of them that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. I don't think it's a fix all, but it could get a couple more and increase the, it'll reduce the amount of no-shows that you have by some percentage.
Yeah, it sounds like the question is around like, we thought we had something here, right? I thought you cared about me, and then you just disappeared on me. And so, we had this really crafty, approach that we would take where I would send an email and I would say like, sales leader to sales leader, like, where did my team go wrong? Like, help me. And the funny thing about sales leaders, not me, but most of them, is they're all blowhards and they think they know everything and they love to give advice. And so I'd send an email to their head of sales and say, can you help me? I have a new team. They're all right out of college. Like, it seems like from the notes, there was something here, and then you ghosted. So like, where'd we go wrong? And that's like a tactic that we still use to this day. And it's genuine too. Help me fix my team. And so we actually, this is selfish, but we had a customer that was in trial with Chorus, and the head of sales, had like a really big important deal, a strategic account. They entered demo, they agreed to take a trial, and then ghost, nothing happened. And so he went back to the last conversation and he listened to it, and he identified the moment on the call where the prospect suddenly stopped being on board. And then he just isolated that moment of the call into a video, shared it back to the prospect and said, I can't believe my salesperson answered you this way. That's not how I would expect them to do that. I can help you. If there's real interest, like, I'll make it my personal mission to fix this, right? Rescue's like a $20,000 deal. They close and it's all in a trial of our product. So like, yeah, I'm self-promoting right now, but the truth is, what I mean to say is, like, if you want to know what's going wrong and why your prospects are ghosting you, go ask him, either by listening to the call or just call him and ask him. And I don't mean the rep, because that's, can I have my money? Can I have my money? Can I have my money? Have the boss, have the manager reach out and say, explain to me where I went wrong and where my rep is fucked up, and then I'll fix it for you.
I like that approach too, because it disarms, you're not like selling, you're saying, hey, can you just honestly help us here? And, I'll give one tip to make this easier too for the sales leader on your team to do, is like, draft up the email form and say, hey, can you reach out to so-and-so with this email? So you're not like saying, take 20 minutes out of your day, 10 minutes out of your day to research this person, send them an email with this question. Just draft it up for them, make it easy. And Joe, this kind of dovetails, this question from Devin dovetails on what you were just talking about, and Nick too. If an SDR candidate isn't an athlete, how do you sort of probe for the specific traits during an interview process that you want to hire for?
Yeah, I am not one of these scientific hiring people looking like trying to notch off this crazy checklist. And that's probably to my detriment. And I need to get better at that. So basically my formula is, I'll get on the initial call with that person, and at the end of the 20 minutes that we have allotted, do I actually want to extend the time that I want to keep talking with them? Because I enjoyed the conversation. And I feel like if they're able to do that with me about the thing that they know most about, which is their life, then I'm convinced to move to the next step. And then I create other steps in the process of basically having them talk to other people on the team and see if they had a similar reaction, or get what their reaction was. So that's just my simple way. The other guys may have more of a checklist driven thing for those of you that prefer that.
No, Nick, I think we're more closely aligned than you think. So I'm going to share something, and then the folks that want to come get a job that is just crushing inbound leads and people are coming through drift into our pipeline like at a rapid rate, I'll tell you how to get a job with us. I gang tackle in my interviews. I work with the other stakeholders in the business, and we interview through a process. And we have like 5 traits that we're specifically hunting for. And then we have like, I'll ask a question in the first interview that will be brought up again in the second interview, because I'm testing if they retain information, as an example. So you're testing for competitive nature. You're testing for someone that can kind of like withstand the heat from an angry prospect and then still use the talk track, that can get attacked on the phone and still refer to their training. And so what I'll do, and this is really, I don't know, there are like stories and lore about the reps that I've hired over the years and what it was like in the first interview with me. Because what I do is I dress them down in the first interview. I find an answer I don't agree with. I find a statement that I don't think is factual, or one that's even just debatable, and I'll go in on it and I'll disagree, and I'll kind of work them up and see how hard they fight back. And then at the end of the conversation, I'll back off and I'll say, hey, like, I actually see your point. Like, I'm just kind of testing to see like how passionate you are. Like, I wouldn't worry about it. But listen, do me a favor. In the next interview, I need you to accomplish this thing with the next person you're meeting. The next person comes into the room knowing what just happened because it's part of a scripted interview. And then they see if they take my advice. So can they get yelled at, early interrupted, hung up on the phone by one prospect, and go right back to the talk track and the phone, make the next call and do it the way they're told? Can they perform after being dressed down by a prospect? That's how I'm testing for like competitiveness and toughness and willingness to stick through it.
I like that. So we've got time for a couple of more questions. If you guys want to get them in, please ask now using the Q&A button. Another question that I'm not sure this is going to be something that either of you can sort of speak to personally, but it's a good question. Evelyn asked, any tips for getting over at least a perceived handicap of having an accent when you're talking to a prospect on the phone? So maybe you're not 100% confident in your speaking ability and in the language that you're calling with. Have you guys had anyone on your teams in the past that's been able to get over something like this? And do you have any advice to provide?
Sure. One of our top reps was from the UK. One of my top reps ever was from Ireland. I think it's about being a human being. I think it's about making a human connection, and I think it's about doing a good job and leading with value and helping. So, I mean, man, I hope that your target audience isn't so far in the Stone Age that they can't work with people that have an accent. And if so, like, maybe you're in the wrong space. But I think it's about like who you are and what you bring to the table, not what you sound like or what you look like. I mean, I really hope so.
Well said.
Agreed.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap this up now. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We're going to send out a recording. If you have more questions that you want to ask us, we're all very approachable. You can reach us over email, Twitter, all the social medias. Dave, do you want to tell people how they can best reach out to you if they have questions?
Sure. I am at Dave Gerhardt on Twitter. You may see some LinkedIn videos if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. And you can email me, dg@drift.com.
Cool. Joe, how about you?
I'm really easy. I'm Joe at chorus.ai. I don't know if you've seen this, but you can reach me on our website or in my email. I'm always available. I'm a nerd for this stuff. It's my hobby.
All right, Nick.
Simple for me as well. Just Nick, N-I-C-K at close.io. And I'm also at Nick Persico on Twitter. Pretty active on there. So looking forward to hopefully connecting with some of you.
Beautiful. All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys all for joining, and thanks for watching.